Sparks are sure to fly tonight when you meet the people in this story accused of trying to cash in on your generosity. After last summer's bushfires devastated huge swathes of the country, $500 million of donations flooded into Australian charities to help those who suffered. 6 months on, though, nearly half of that remains undistributed, which is causing bitterness in many communities. Some victims, struggling through winter in caravans and tents, feel they've been forgotten. But the charities say there's a reason for the delay. It takes time to ensure the claims are legitimate, especially when there are so many accused of wanting money for nothing. It's a summer we'll remember for all the wrong reasons. 18 million hectares burned, 3,500 homes destroyed, and 34 lives lost. We'd never seen anything quite like it, but the response was equally unprecedented. Australians opening their hearts and wallets to the tune of more than $500 million. But now many are left asking, where has all that money gone?
Only half the money's gone out. And yet we've got people in caravans in the freezing cold on their blocks not getting the money they need to get by. And that's unacceptable.
But the charities say they're dealing with another unprecedented challenge. Alleged fraudsters wrongly claiming their houses burned down and putting their hands out for money.
Michael, Tom Steinfort from 60 Minutes. Quite brave showing your face around here given what you're charged with.
Tonight we track down those accused of trying to rort the system.
Why didn't you go find some real criminals?
Well, a lot of
people that get kidnapped and raped and things like that.
And we have people that are just dishonest. It's just a disgraceful behaviour that they are then tapping into the system in a very unlawful way and holding up where the money should really be going to.
Lot 1 Princess Highway.
This is your place.
Really getting emotional.
Trace and Adam Fleeton are returning to the place they used to call home.
It's really hard, very difficult. Lots of memories.
Trace wanted to retire here in the hamlet of Kaya, situated in southern New South Wales, about 30 kilometres from the Victorian border.
Must feel pretty surreal, but this is sort of walking through where the front door was.
Yeah, I just opened the door.
Into the lounge room.
Come into the lounge room. This is
fireplace.
The last the couple saw of their home was on New Year's Eve as fires bore down. The pair making a dash to nearby Eden, fearing the worst.
We evacuated and ended up in Eden Wharf for 4 nights, which was horrific conditions down there, really. Terrifying.
I think they were pictures that frightened the whole nation.
Yeah.
And you guys were discussing jumping in the water there with the flames.
We were ready
yeah.
to jump in the water. We were told to bring a woolen jacket to jump.
Fire blanket.
We had that, a woolen jacket and a fire blanket, and we were prepared to jump.
Eden dodged a bullet that night, but unfortunately for Trace and Adam, Kaya copped the full force of the fire front.
Yeah, I was 99.9% sure the house was gone, but holding on to that 0.1.
What about you, Trace? Did you think it was gone at that stage?
I knew it had gone. I could feel it. Yeah, I knew it had gone. By then we had spoken to other people that had emergency services, RFS and that had been through the area, and when they found out that we were from Kaya, they just hugged us.
All right.
Yep.
Take a sec, have a drink. It's fine, you don't have to rush through it.
Okay.
Their house was gone, only a few items salvaged from the rubble. And while the couple heard plenty about the fortune donated by generous Australians, they now question why their community feels like it's literally been left out in the cold.
This was our bedroom.
Tens of millions were raised, whether it be through Red Cross, Celeste Barber, you know, governments chipping in money.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Kaya's been helped by all of that?
Kaya's been forgotten.
Yeah.
Kaya has been forgotten.
Gut-wrenching, really. Just feel alone. And people are getting all this support, and it just took so long to get to Kaya.
I think it's tough to see hundreds of caravans littered across the region as people try and rebuild their lives.
I've been through what everyone's been through.
New South Wales State MP Andrew Constance sprung to national prominence earlier this year for his raw reactions to the bushfire that crippled his electorate of Bega, which takes in much of the state's south coast.
That day, New Year's Eve, changed me forever. It's hard. It's traumatic.
He's now one of the most vocal critics of what he sees as a slow and sloppy response from charities in the wake of this summer's disaster.
I think the big challenge that we've seen is, you know, the Red Cross and these organisations saying, oh, we're going to hold back money for another 3 years and, oh, we're going to do some community building. That's not good enough when Australians are doing it so hard right now.
Latest figures show that potentially hundreds of millions of dollars worth of bushfire relief donations are still being held back by charities, more than 6 months on from the fires. Red Cross alone is sitting on $99 million in cash, nearly half the money it raised. The Salvation Army is yet to distribute more than $18 million of donations, while St Vincent de Paul has only used just over half of the money donated to its bushfire fundraiser. For the millions of Australians that opened their wallets over summer, do you think they have had their money go where they wanted it to?
No. And I've got to be honest with you, they won't donate again. And that's the sad part about this. When people donated in the knowledge that would help a person in immediate need. That hasn't happened. I think, you know, ultimately, when Australians donate into the future, they will want that guarantee and that certainty that that dollar will be immediately spent, not left in a charity's bank account earning interest.
Red Cross, which coordinated the biggest bushfire fundraiser, wasn't willing to be interviewed about why it's still sitting on so much money. But Gary Johns, who heads up the industry watchdog, the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission, says these groups do have some excuses.
Charities are not unlike other businesses. Things can go wrong. The question is, are they professional enough to overcome the wrongs? And there's a supposedly naughty word, professional charities. Well, they are. You're managing tens of millions of dollars. You'd want to be good at it. All that costs money, and that money has to come out of donations.
He sympathises with many of the organisations who were swamped by kindness and perhaps not prepared for a disaster of this magnitude.
The Wildlife Recovery Group, WIRES, for instance, in Sydney, their normal income in a year is $3 million. They receive $60 million in a matter of weeks. Now you have to manage that. Overnight, you have a responsibility to manage $60 million, which you've never managed before. It was very stressful, I must say, for WIRES, that whole period.
Did they even ask for that money?
They didn't, no. For some reason, their name got onto some of the big US websites. I think it was Barack Obama's website, Oprah Winfrey's, and the money just literally flowed in.
Perhaps even more unexpected was the number of fraudulent claims charities had to comb through, with people totally unaffected by the fires putting their hands out for help. How much time did the charities responding to this bushfire crisis have to waste on dealing with fraudulent claims?
Yeah, well, too much. I mean, a moment wasted is a moment you don't get the money out the door. But in an era of heightened emotions, everyone's running around trying to do good. And that's when shysters see their chance.
Coming up,
Why don't you go find some real criminals?
confronting the accused,
Why are you hiding your face? Are you embarrassed?
charged for ripping off
How do you defend this?
their own communities.
I don't know how they can live with themselves, let alone sleep at night.
That's next on 60 Minutes. This house at Surf Beach, about 4 hours' drive south of Sydney, is home to a local by the name of Kelly Percy. The property looks unremarkable, but it turns out it was certainly full of surprises for 3 different charities as well as local detectives. Police allege the 38-year-old claimed her house had in fact burned down and lodged 5 different claims for bushfire relief funding. Not only is her house still standing, it's several kilometres from the nearest fire front.
Kelly, were you making up those stories about losing your house to the fires? Can you just explain to us what happened? So many people have lost their homes around here, and you're accused of trying to profit from their misfortune.
Percy is now one of many accused of rorting the system. She's alleged to have pocketed $7,500 from charities before police began investigating her suspicious claims, eventually charging her with 5 counts of obtaining financial advantage by deception.
Why are you hiding your face, Kelly? Are you embarrassed? Did you lie to profit from other people's misfortune? As far as crimes go, it doesn't get much lower, does it?
If you look at the heart of it, it is just a disgusting behaviour. It's something that's inexcusable.
Gary Warboys is a Deputy Commissioner of New South Wales Police and the state's Emergency Operations Controller. As if his officers don't have enough to deal with in these fire-ravaged regions, they now have the added burden of investigating a still growing number of cases of fraud. It's quite sad, isn't it, that it's not necessarily criminal syndicates from the big cities that are doing this. It's people from within these fire-hit communities that are exploiting people that they'd see every day walking down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. And they seem to think that they're entitled to get into a system, to make a false declaration, to front up to a service provider and get thousands of dollars that they're simply not entitled to. It's disgraceful. They're dishonest. It shows a great deal of disrespect for their community.
You've seen how tough so many people are doing it in these fire-hit communities. Just on a personal level, I mean, how do you feel to see them then being exploited by these fraudsters?
I've got to say that you do lose sleep over it. You lose sleep over it because you know that these people are vulnerable in so many ways. It makes me feel very sad. It makes me feel very sad that that we end up where we are today with people that that want to defraud money that would be much better spent and much more purposeful around the true victims of these disasters.
Michael, Tom Steinfort from 60 Minutes. Quite brave showing your face around here, given what you're charged with. It's quite an interesting approach you took there.
Michael Brodrib is another Surf Beach local accused of ripping off charities in the wake of the bushfires. Police say he used a false address on his claim when his own house was nowhere near the fire. His payday from St Vincent de Paul and the Salvation Army was to the tune of thousands.
We've seen your house, and it's perfectly fine. How do you defend this?
Right, just go into the courtroom.
Sadly, police believe charities aren't the only ones who've been taken for a ride. Taxpayers too. Yusuf Srika is accused of assuming 64 fake identities to claim disaster recovery payments from Centrelink, totalling more than $70,000. The 34-year-old was arrested by federal police and is now behind bars awaiting his next court appearance. Then there's Anna Damkier, who on her Facebook page boasts about living her best life. Unfortunately, police allege bushfire relief grants were funding it, and she's now facing multiple charges of obtaining financial advantage by deception.
Anna, Tom Steinfort from 60 Minutes. Just wanted to ask you about all those charges you're facing for fraudulently claiming bushfire relief funds.
Despite living in this house in Port Macquarie, nowhere near where bushfires hit, the 28-year-old and her friend Caitlin Gordon are accused of assuming 25 identities to claim more than $27,000 in payments.
Why would you do something like that, Anna?
Why would I do something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've got no comment for you. Why don't you go find some real criminals?
Well, a lot of people
get kidnapped and raped and things like that.
For genuine bushfire victims like Trace and Adam Fleeton, allegations like these are just another kick in the teeth.
How do you feel when you hear about these people that are trying to scam the system and profit from other people's suffering?
It makes me furious.
I don't know how they can live with themselves, or let alone sleep at night. It's just horrible. And that's why it has taken so much longer, because of all these scammers. They have to go through all these protocols to get money out to people because of scammers.
Fraud isn't the only challenge that's delayed getting donations to victims.
We have all lent on each other.
Despite the best intentions, comedian Celeste Barber's fundraiser became the centre of a Supreme Court battle over who would actually receive the $51 million she raised.
It isn't going everywhere that we had kind of wanted it to, but what it is doing is going to make such a difference. So I have a bit
What are the pitfalls of having celebrities run their own fundraisers?
Well, Ms Barber has admitted that she's a comedian and not a lawyer.
Christian Seibert is a charity expert at Melbourne's Swinburne University of Technology and knows all about the industry's often complex rules. He believes donors can learn as much as charities in the wash-up from the summer's fundraisers, saying in future, people should take more time to research what a charity is actually going to do with their money.
I think next time round there needs to be a real strong focus on being open about how you're spending your funds, how quickly, just to ensure that there aren't any misunderstandings around that.
Do you think people need to back off charities a bit?
Well, I think people need to have realistic expectations of what charities can and can't do. We all make mistakes. And I think that we have to perhaps be a bit more forgiving when charities do sometimes make mistakes.
With the Bushfires Royal Commission set to deliver its report at the end of August, a lot could be learned from the locals in Kaya.
Good to see you. Good to see you, mates.
Good to see you.
Trace and Adam did eventually get help from charities, but most of the support came far too late. So late, in fact, they'd already set up their own relief centre for the local community, focusing on what people needed urgently.
It's a bit of a sad indictment, isn't it, that you're one of the people that lost your home, yet you're the person that ends up running the local relief centre.
We needed more on-the-ground people. We needed the army to stay. We needed other charities to stay and do what we were doing. They should have been the ones coordinating instead of us coordinating. And yeah, I wouldn't give it up for, I wouldn't change it for anything, for what I received from it, being able to help people. But if it ever happened again, I wouldn't recommend that you put it on top of your list. It's hard work.
Controversially, local MP Andrew Constance believes the days of multiple charities running relief efforts may be numbered. He now wants one all-encompassing body to take charge of disaster responses in future.
And particularly if you get a Sir Peter Cosgrove or the likes of Sir Peter Cosgrove to manage it. Because the first thing that needs to happen is that those funds need to go to those at a local level who can make the right decisions. Not be centrally based around a boardroom, but those on the ground. And that's where I think it's been incredibly frustrating, the ability for checks to be written at grassroots level by those in the know who can help those most in need. And that's where I think a national disaster relief fund, wouldn't matter if it's a cyclone in Queensland or a flood in Victoria or a fire in New South Wales, you've got that capacity and that ability to help.
Charities themselves feared they could be heading for a disaster of their own as the COVID-driven financial downturn means donations have dramatically dried up these last few months. But Australia may need them more than ever again this summer. The forecast is worryingly for another devastating bushfire season just around the corner.
People are scared. There's a lot of communities where the fire didn't burn to the back door, and there's still a lot of bushland to burn. So people are scared. They know the fires are going to come again.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.